The following program is for mature audiences only. Football talk shows, most of them sound like this. Blah, 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 blah. Not this one. That's because it features the former director of college scouting with the Chicago Bears. He worked on the staff that drafted, the likes of Devin Hester, Olin Kreutz, Lance Briggs. He's the man who takes shit from absolutely nobody. He's Greg Gabriel. Gabriel joins longtime Chicago sports reporter David Schustr. And this is, accordingly, Gabriel Schuster Talk Bears.
And welcome into the latest and still undefeated Gabriel Schuster podcast. I am David Schustr. He, of course, is Mr. Greg Gabriel. And Greg, we are going to break down and dissect all, and I do mean all, of yesterday's 30-26 win by the Bears over the Atlanta Falcons. And even though some, if not many people around the country, and certainly a lot here in Chicago, would call the Bears the luckiest or maybe the worst 3-0 team in the NFL, the bottom line is they are undefeated 3-0 and looking at least good as far as the standings go, at least at the moment.
You know what? I think they're going to be 4-0 after this weekend. I think they beat the Colts now. But we'll get into that later as to why.
Okay, we're going to hear from so many people from yesterday's game, and even today, we don't have a quarterback controversy. That's the beauty of this. I mean, there's been a lot of quarterback controversies over the years in regards to the Bears, but there's been a quarterback change. It happened yesterday. We're going to talk extensively about that. And, of course, Matt Nagy made the announcement going forward here today. Again, we'll hear from the coach, and we'll hear from Trubisky, and we'll hear from Foles, and we'll also hear from Akeem Hicks. But as we always do here on our podcast, the day after a game, we're going to go through chronologically from start to finish from yesterday's game. And the Bears, do the Bears ever win the toss? Because they don't, seemingly. The other team always defers to get the ball in the second half. Hasn't made a difference because the Bears are 3-0 so far this year. But what I liked right off the bat in yesterday's game, as they have in the first two previous games, they tried to establish the run right off the bat, and I think that's the mark of a good team.
They did. They had actually a pretty good first drive, and then Santos misses the field goal. I tweeted out right after that, I go, don't be surprised if that's his last game, because
I said cut him.
Eddie Pinheiro can come off IR this
That's
week.
Right.
The big thing is he healthy? Because if he's still got that groin pill, then Santos can be around a few more weeks.
All right, now also on that opening drive, the Bears had two tight ends on the field, and we talked, and I said that's a harbinger of what's going to happen later on in this game. Not only running the football, but also taking advantage of the tight ends in the passing offense. And in the first couple of games, I don't know if they were sandbagging. I don't know if that's the right word to use here, but they didn't take advantage of the tight ends, extensively. But yesterday, they had all three tight ends that were involved in the game.
Yes, but let's look at it realistically. I got a tongue twister there. The tight ends didn't become a big part of the passing game until after Nick Foles took over.
That's a good point.
In the third quarter.
Good point.
Now, they threw one to Harris, they threw one to Graham. Yeah, they had a couple catches, maybe 3 catches early, but they had 9 total, and we'll get into that later because the whole style of the offense changed when Nick Foles took over in the third quarter.
All right, now that first drive I thought was pretty good drive. It was building towards the end zone. Unfortunately, once again, in the red zone, and this has just been a knock against Mitch Trubisky. He just can't put up the points.
They didn't finish.
It's finish.
Simple as that. You got to finish drives.
And if you're ever going to be, obviously, you got to score touchdowns instead of field goals once you get into the red zone. And maybe, again, this is a harbinger of the rest of the game, but there was a first down play where he had a bad pass. He had a couple of long passes off target, later on in after Atlanta scored the touchdown, he had a couple of passes that were off center. One was overthrown. Another one was, about 5 or 8 yards wide of its mark. So even though his numbers at the half, and I'm getting ahead of myself, Trubisky was 12 of 20 for 123 yards, a QB rating of 94.4, and a touchdown, he still made too many mistakes, and I'll bet you already, the coaching staff was probably thinking ahead, weren't they?
Oh, there's no question. They only gave him a couple series in the second half. And to go back and let's be fair, Mitch isn't allowed to make mistakes. In the coach's view and the fans' view, he overthrows a guy, everybody comes down on him. Now, Foles can overthrow a guy. Aaron Rodgers can overthrow a guy. Nobody says a word. Mitch overthrows a guy, and, everything comes out. People get pissed off. That's just the nature of the game with him because people didn't want him in as quarterback. So he had to be perfect.
Well, but some of the other names you made mention of have had success at the absolute highest level. Trubisky hasn't had that kind of success.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
But it just puts the point I'm trying to make is it just puts a lot of pressure on him to be perfect, and he can't be perfect. That's not his game.
And I don't think he'll ever be perfect, to be perfectly blunt. But we'll talk more about him in just a moment.
We're using perfect a lot here.
Well, you and I are perfect, but that's a whole different story. All right, so Atlanta gets the ball. Atlanta gets the ball, and if you want to see how to throw a deep pass, Ryan threw a beautiful opening pass to Calvin Ridley, who beat his buddy Eddie Jackson.
Well, what happened on that play was...
Help me out.
The zone coverage.
Mm-hmm.
So Fuller has him on the underneath, and he passes him off to Eddie, but Eddie really wasn't in great position, and Ridley makes the move and Ridley can run a lot faster than Eddie Jackson can run, like 10th and a half faster in the 40, and it was all over.
Okay. We go into the second quarter now. The Bears only have 3 points at the end of the first quarter. The defense started bending a little bit early on in the second quarter, although they finally stiffened up in the red zone. Hicks with a big sack. And it was a beautiful blitz call, I thought, by Pagano. I thought Pagano actually called a pretty good game overall yesterday. What were your thoughts on that?
No, I agree with you. I just think that the defense obviously started off a little slow. Atlanta ran a lot. They had 145 yards, I think, at one point during the game. I don't know what the final number was. The defense still hasn't put together the complete game. But I think in the second half, and actually going back to the last part of the first half, from that point on, the defense stiffened, played a lot better. And that part of the play calling on Atlanta that didn't help. They didn't try to run the ball. When the game was starting to get close, they were trying to pass, and they had one drive that I think lasted a total of 11 seconds in the second half when they needed to run clock because they threw 3 passes in a row that were incomplete.
All right, so then the Bears offense takes over. They had a couple, if I'm not mistaken, 2 straight 3-and-outs. Again, maybe a harbinger of what the coaching staff was thinking at halftime. I noticed at that point the Bears were 1 of 5 on third down, and that's a bugaboo. And unfortunately, that falls on the quarterback as much as it does anybody. And again, I'm sure the coaches, when they got together in the locker room at halftime, they're taking a look at the same things that I'm looking at and saying, not good enough.
The drive that or lack of drive that caught my eye was the last drive of the Bears in the first half. They forced Atlanta to punt. They still had about 1:54 left. They had some timeouts. They got the ball in good field position and went 3-and-out.
Okay.
And that and they had the ball in such good field position that the worst thing you wanted to see was 3 points and hopefully 7 points, and they gave the ball right back to Atlanta. And Atlanta it was like the Detroit game in the opener, where Atlanta had enough time to go downfield, but they did nothing either.
All right, on one of the Atlanta drives, it was the first of 2 roughing the passer, roughing penalties on the Bears. And we're going to hear from Akeem Hicks in just a little bit here, talking about the one in the second half that upset him and probably everybody in Chicago watching the game yesterday. But what did you think on that first one?
I thought it was a horrible call. Hicks hits, ball comes out of his hand, and right at that same instant, Mario Edwards, he goes into him. When I first saw it in live time, I thought it might have been he led with his head, but when I saw the replay, that wasn't the case. Terrible call, and what really hurt the Bears there is it was a sack, forced fumble. The Bears recovered and would have put the Bears in excellent field position to go down and score, yet Atlanta gets a 15-yard penalty and they score. So in essence, it's really a 14-point differential.
I don't know if it's ironic, if that's the right word, but both roughing the passer penalties led to touchdowns for Atlanta. And on this first one, Brian Hill gets into the end zone from 35 yards. Sort of reminded me of the David Montgomery touchdown against the Giants, where he zigzagged around And I thought, I don't know, you tell me, what did you see on that play?
I just thought the run defense was terrible in that first half, and then they tightened up later in the second half and did a lot better job. But they have to come out and stop the run right from the get-go.
All right, it's 16-3 at that point. The Bears get the ball back. Trubisky, to his credit, using the assets that he has at his availability. And honestly, I don't know what the Falcons did on that 45-yard run. I mean, I don't know where it's. I tweeted, I think they took a lunch break because I didn't see them. There was nobody in the picture for like about 8 seconds. What the hell?
The defense they were in man coverage, and all the defenders had their back to the line of scrimmage, and it just opened up right from the snap almost. The center of the field just opened up, and Mitch made one look, I think, to a receiver, saw that was covered, and then saw the whole center of the field. There's a couple times where I think he wanted to go down and said, I can't, there's nobody around me, and he kept going, and he got down to the 6-yard line.
All right, so then Trubisky does, to his credit, throw his touchdown pass, the first of 2 to Jimmy Graham on the day, the other one obviously from Nick Foles. It's a 2-yarder. It was a pretty easy play on both our guys' parts.
Posted up on that play.
Yeah. And what I like about Graham, I mean, obviously he's got a lot of size, a lot of length, and pending on certainly if he's against a safety or a cornerback is trying to cover him, there's no chance he's just going to be able to grab the ball, especially if they go high with it.
No, that was a basketball play. He just got position, boxed the guy out, and posted up.
See, that's what Adam Shaheen, unfortunately, I don't know. Is he playing down in Miami right now?
Yes,
he is. Is he playing well? I have no idea. Not playing well. Okay, so he's continuing not to play well. But
I saw him in 2 tight
he's
end
hurt again,
situations.
of course. But that's what when they drafted Adam Shaheen, and that was a gamble and a half, by the way. That's what I think they were hoping, because the man stood 6'7", and he had incredible length. That he should have been able, especially in the red zone, to take advantage. Unfortunately, he never panned out. But Jimmy Graham, it doesn't have a ton of catches, but he's starting to make his presence felt.
He had 6 yesterday, and a lot. We'll get into that, but a lot of that had to do with the change of the quarterback.
Okay, so now it is 16-10 at the half, and what I'm starting to think also is, Atlanta right now, they started the game without Julio Jones. I think Gage went out at that point in the first half, did he not?
Right.
All right, so now all of a sudden Ryan is without 2 of his, targets. And they're not exactly, even though they ran the ball sort of well yesterday, they're not known as a running team. To me, it was sort of teed up for the Bears to come back in the second half and win this game because of the injuries. The Bears took advantage of the Giant injuries, and I think ultimately yesterday, when it's all said and done, they also took advantage of the Falcon injuries.
Well, here's what I think, too, is that, and looking at the defense and where the defense had some inconsistency in their play and didn't do as good a job as we'd like against the run, they actually had a very good day rushing the passer, put consistent pressure on Flynn. Now, the way you beat Flynn is not a good quarterback when he has to try to make plays with his feet. You get him off platform, and he'll make bad throws. Now, I don't think he threw any picks. No, he threw the 1 pick late in the game yesterday. But he still had to make off-target or off-balance throws, and that was due to the pass rush. They kept getting into his face, and they didn't get a lot of sacks, but they hit him a number of times. And I think that started to change the game for the Bears from the defensive side, actually, late in the first half.
He looked tentative in the second half, maybe because he was getting
the
hit.
Shit kicked out of him.
Yeah, and let's face it, that does happen. You want to say that your quarterback is so tough that he can withstand it, but that's what the 85 Bears. I hate to go back in time so much, but they beat the shit out of so many quarterbacks that season that they intimidated the what out of them. Well, I already swore once, so I can swear the second time. They intimidated the shit out of them, and that's why a lot of those quarterbacks then and now still, they start having poor performances. It's just that simple.
Well, David, the book on Matt Ryan, hit him and take him off his game. Let him try to make the off-platform throws and try to scramble because he can't. And that's exactly what the Bears were able to do through most of the second half. The defense, I thought, played great in the second half. Inconsistent in the first half.
All right. We're going to get more into the second half in just a second, but it is halftime. I'm thirsty. I feel like having a beer. No, I won't actually have a beer during this podcast. It'll be actually a sip of water. But let's take a break right here, Greg, and when we come back, we're going to go through the entire second half and hear from all the participants. We'll be back right after this.
Hey everybody, it's Aldo Gandia. Just a quick note to let you know that we have opened up a Patreon page. Patreon is a crowdfunding website that helps us pay the bills. And so what I'd like you to do is later this week, head over to bearsbarroom.com. You will see a link to our Patreon page and you can subscribe for either $5 a month or $10 a month and get tons of extra material, particularly about our Chicago Bears. Check it out, bearsbarroom.com. Visit our Patreon page and it will let you know all of the cool extras that we'll be delivering for you, Bears fans and Chicago sports fans. We'll have things there on the Cubs and lots of other things. So check it out, bearsbarroom.com.
All right, well, that was a quick halftime, and we're back now here on the podcast. Greg, what did you have for halftime? Did you cook your chili? What did you have?
I'm still waiting for Aldo to bring out the food.
Ah!
What the hell kind of press box is it?
Yeah. Well, I guarantee it's better than the food at Soldier Field's press box. I can promise you that. All right, anyway, let's get into the second half. Right off the bat, Atlanta gets the ball because they did defer, and they got the ball to start the second half. And once again, and this honestly, this one really infuriated me. There was a BS roughing the passer call. This one was on Hakeem Hicks, and if we can get that one ready, Aldo, I know I'm batting out of order here.
And I think that was a third down, too.
It was a third down, okay.
So it would have forced Atlanta into punting, and the penalty gives them a first down, then they go on and score.
This one was, I tweeted out, I go, do you remember the days when roughing the passer quarterbacks were really roughing the passer quarterbacks?
Yeah, he had to rip off his head.
Yeah, nowadays, this one really infuriated me because this was nothing more than a regular tackle, wasn't even a violent one, and it was just literally... As soon as he threw the ball, come on, it gets ridiculous at some point. Let's hear from Hakeem Hicks after the game yesterday.
That's a tough one, man. I'm just playing football, and there's no ill will towards anybody. I am trying to be physical, but there's no ill will and just bad intention, right? So you accept the call for what it is, but I think I can speak for the people that watch the game, and they want to see people get hit. They want to see the quarterback, roughed up a little bit. You don't want him to stand in the pocket and just go on vacation. You want him to feel you around him. So I accept the call for what it is, but I would hope that we would look at that sometime maybe in the offseason and say, hey, let's let him hit the quarterback for a second.
You know what, Greg? I don't accept the call for what it is. It's wrong. I'm sorry. It's just wrong.
Well, here's what happens from an official standpoint. On Monday, the coaches look at the tape. And when there's questionable calls, they get an opportunity to protest to the league. So they write up certain plays, put the time, the down and distance, etc. On this play, Hakeem Hicks got hit the quarterback. I called for roughing the passer. We didn't think it was roughing the passer call, yada, yada, yada. And the league always answers back by Wednesday. Wouldn't shock me that come Wednesday, both of those calls, the league will say, yeah, we made a mistake. Now watch, I'll be wrong, and Mario Edwards will get a $25,000 fine for that first hit or something like that. But generally, that's what happens when you got a complaint about a call. You can write into the league office, and they'll look at it.
Okay, so big deal. All right, the league says, well, we were wrong. So what? What does it amount to?
When you win, it's okay. When you lose, it sucks.
Yeah, but it doesn't amount to anything. Here, I'll add another thought to this whole thing. Is not only are they protecting the quarterbacks, overly protecting them with these penalties, but also the lack of holding calls. Khalil Mack, by my eye,
3 or 4 times at least.
Easily. And so they are allowed to hold these guys in a way that I've never seen before in my 40-plus years of watching football. And it is ridiculous.
Holding calls as a whole are down tremendously. I don't know what the percentage is, but the word from the league office, and there's a new head of officiating, is that only throw the flag when it's obvious. But on some of these with Khalil Mack, they're more than obvious. I mean, I've seen times when people grab him around the neck.
Yeah.
He's going to get decapitated one of these days. Maybe they'll throw the flag that day.
All right, so after the BS call, of course, Atlanta gets into the end zone. Like I said, both roughing.
Let's back up just for a second.
Sure thing.
How about this? Until the second half, Atlanta didn't have a penalty on them?
That's right.
No, okay. Now, come on. There's 2 teams on the field.
Home cooking.
Okay. I don't like that officiating crew. I think Jerome Boger is just an awful.
It was
lead official.
I don't think there's any question. Certainly we were unanimous between the three of us that was one of the worst officiated games of all time.
But
yesterday.
I think every time I've seen him call a game, regardless of who's playing,
I agree.
There's problems, and there's always calls that come back that you're pissed off about. I just think they're very inconsistent, and they just throw some horseshit type flags.
Okay, so following the BS roughing call, Todd Gurley...
You can say bullshit.
And bullshit. I said it 3 times. Todd Gurley gets into the end zone, and I thought there was some missed tackles on that play, Greg.
Yeah.
Arm tackles.
Right. And right away when I saw that play, I'm thinking... That's like a preseason.
Yeah.
And really, we're in the third week of the season. It's like the third week of the preseason. You had very light hitting during the 12 or 13 days you could have a contact in training camp. You had no preseason games, and perfect result of that was that touchdown run.
Okay, it's 23-10 at this point. Mitch Trubisky comes out in the second half, and it wasn't very long. I can't remember. Was it a first down play? It was the first play?
First series.
First series. I know it was the first series. I can't remember if it was a first or second down or third down play, but whatever. It was a bad read. It was a bad pass, and it was a pass that, I'm sorry, a guy who's supposedly your franchise quarterback cannot make. It was intercepted, and that was going to be the end of his day. And we're going to hear now from what did you find out what play?
Before we go to the
it was a second play. Okay.
Before we go to that, I thought the same thing. What we didn't hear from any of the announcers, and that was a poor job by the TV crew doing the game, is Foles had to be warming up on the sideline. Mm-hmm. Had to, because he was going in. Nobody said a word. Nobody said a word until he was actually in the game. Mm-hmm.
You're saying he was warming up even before Trubisky threw the interception?
No, but they.
Oh, okay.
He throws the interception.
Afterwards, yes.
Atlanta's got the ball.
Yes.
We both assumed, okay, they're going to pull the plug right now. Foles is going to go in. You would think the TV people would notice on the sideline that the guy's warming up, because he's not going to go in the game without throwing a few passes on the sideline.
How about the sideline reporter? I mean, she was nice to look at yesterday, no question about that. But how about her doing her job?
Yeah, but in fairness, she's
on the other
stands.
Side.
No, she's in the stands.
Oh, she's not allowed on the
field.
field.
They're not allowed on the field. They're in the first row of the stands.
Yeah,
and
she can
maybe
see.
On the home side of the field. She might not even be able to go on the visiting side of the field. So I'll cut her a pass, but still, somebody's got to see something.
Okay. Anyway, I'm going to read you what I love Brad Biggs. Brad Biggs talking about Trubisky, and I just have to, was reading the paper this morning. I had to just bring this in. He says, Trubisky struggles at times to read coverages. He is slow to go from his first read to his second and rarely makes it to his third. He's not skilled as a pocket thrower. His accuracy is sometimes off. None of that is I can't even say the word. None of it's a revelation. But bottom line, when you have all those negatives against you, that's not exactly, sterling comments about your starting quote unquote franchise quarterback.
And then you got to go to where Biggsy thinks of Trubisky. He thinks he's awful, and he's thought that for a long time. So the change was made, and Biggsy's like, all right, now I can have some fun.
Yeah, and I can't wait to write this. Is what he was thinking. You're right. I know, Brad.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know what the food was down there, but you couldn't wait to write it. Anyway. Well, let's hear from Matt Nagy. This is after the game now, yesterday, where he talked about he had no choice but to make the change at that point.
When I knew it was the interception there on third down. We were struggling on third down a lot. We weren't producing points in the red zone. And, I just think that sometimes there's a gut feeling as to when to do it. And that seemed like the right time. And it's never fun. You guys understand these relationships that we build with these guys, these players. They're strong relationships, and it's not easy, but it's there's personal relationships and past relationships, and that's just where we're at that time.
I'm sure it's not an easy thing to do because, listen, there's no question that Mitch Trubisky is a good dude, no question, and you could see that on the sidelines yesterday. All his teammates came up to him. Listen, if he was a bad dude, nobody would have come up to him, but they all did seemingly, and so. you feel for everybody, but hey, you got a football game to win, and that is job number one. And so he had to make the change at that point.
No question. And he had that gut feeling, and he just said, we can win this game. It's not too late. We're not out of it. Just judging on how the defense had picked up play in the second half, they had put a lot of pressure on Ryan, and I think he just said, you know what, I'm going to pull the trigger right now and go with it and see what happens. And he made the right call.
I agree there were a lot of players who were nice to Mitch and said something, but I bet there were a lot of players
relieved.
Also. Exactly. Mm-hmm. It's like these guys, the guys like Akeem Hicks, who are just sacrificing their body and so forth. After the game, he was asked, did you say anything to Trubisky? He says, no, that's not in my pay grade. And so it led me to think that, I'm out there busting my ass, and you got another quarterback who's probably better than the one you're throwing out there week after week. And I wonder if Matt Nagy wasn't almost forced to make the change because he's hearing the grumbling in the locker room.
Well, I don't know if he was forced to make as you say, forced to make the change, but I think, it's already been reported. The coaches talked about it at halftime. So they gave him the series, and that was it. It was, if he doesn't score, he's getting pulled. And he didn't score, he throws an interception, the turnover. So it made the decision even easier to make. Now, you go in, Foles comes in, and you're watching, he didn't set the world on fire right away, but you saw a different mood from the players on the field. They seemed to pick up with the excitement both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Now, I tweeted this out yesterday. Here's the big difference between Foles and Trubisky in this particular offense. Trubisky does not process real quickly and get the ball out of his hand quickly. He holds on to the ball way too long. Nick Foles sees it and gets the ball out right away. And as we'll get into a little bit later, that's why the tight end became a part of the package. Because, there's a lot of these plays where he's the primary receiver. And then after Trubisky goes out, Foles comes in, 6 completions to the tight end in a quarter and a half. And that offense, to work, the tight end has to be the number one receiver.
All right, we're going to hear from Nick Foles. We're going to hear from Mitch Trubisky. We're going to hear from Matt Nagy again. But let's just continue chronologically into the third quarter. And again,
give it. Bears won.
What's that? That reminds me of the old Notre Dame things when Haywood Hale-Brown would go, we now move to further action in the fourth quarter. Well, wait a second. What happened in the third quarter? Okay, whatever. Anyway, Atlanta at that point wasn't doing anything offensively, and like I said, Ryan looked like he was just beat to crap. They weren't running the football anymore. And by the way, did you notice also some of Ryan's throws, Matt Ryan, were like into the ground, okay, or way off target. So who knows? I mean, you might even find out he might be concussed today. I have no idea because he was really beaten up yesterday.
I bet you his underwear was dirty.
dirty. Anyway,
what part of his underwear?
Nick Foles gets out from under center, and yeah, I would agree that maybe one or two of his early passes were off target himself. Listen, you're probably his adrenaline was off the charts. He hadn't been in a game in God knows how long, so he wasn't sterling right off the bat.
10 months.
But he moved the team down the field, and then he throws the ball into the end zone, and this is probably the play that's been most discussed yesterday and or today in regards to was it a touchdown or was it not to Allen Robinson. Now, Allen Robinson is going to argue probably the rest of his life that it was a touchdown. And I went back and forth myself, and I finally came to the conclusion, Greg, myself and Aldo, it was not a touchdown. And I think ultimately they made the right call because as he was coming down, he did have the ball in one arm, if I remember correctly, and he was contorting and coming down, and he had one of his feet on the ground. But by the time he came down with the second one and his body was sort of twirling, the defender took the ball out of his hands, if you will, and I don't think technically, and I don't know exactly what the rule says, I don't think he had possession of the football when he came down.
Well, look at the definition of a catch. You got to complete the process, which means after you hit the ground, you got to retain control of the ball. I agree with you, and I tweeted out right when they were going to replay, I thought that it was an interception. Now, Mike Pereira thought it was a touchdown, and then he mentioned the Bills game against the Rams where it looked like there was a completed pass to one of the Bills' tight ends, and the ball got wrestled away by the Rams. I thought that was a poor call, that it should have been kept by the Bills. And this one, as much as I respect Pereira, and I hope Allen Robinson doesn't get too pissed off, but I thought it was an interception.
I thought it was a turnover too, but who knows, because the NFL has changed this goddamn rule for so many times that the fans don't know what the rule is and the broadcasters don't know. I'm not even sure Mike Pereira, who I have a lot of respect for. I think he's a great ex-ref and a great broadcaster, but I'm not even sure he knows what the latest catch rule is.
Yeah.
Well, in reality, too, you said before the second foot hit the ground, they never went out of bounds on that. So it really didn't matter if the second foot hits the ground, because they landed in the end zone, and once their bodies are on the ground, it's like 2 feet. But still, I thought by the time they hit the ground, the defender had control of the ball.
Yeah, I'm not saying this is the college pro differential between the two sports where 1 foot has to be in or 1 foot out, right, or 1 foot on the ground, whatever. I'm just saying, point of fact, that he did, he was contorting.
Right.
I'm doing this visually right now, and this is an audio podcast. But he had 1 foot on the ground, and then, he
should be a video. You got to see what he's doing.
it's like we're playing Twister. I don't know. He was contorting his body, and when he finally came down, the guy, to his credit, took the ball out of his hands. I mean, a hell of a play on the defensive.
Guy had a great game. That Darquez Denard, he had a great game.
And he was the backup.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he did. I mean, so, Atlanta got pretty beaten up in that game yesterday, and the Bears, to their credit, took advantage. All right, let's go over more of the plays. And again, I might be batting out of order. Unfortunately, Tariq Cohen got hurt in that third quarter. I think it was the third quarter. And I feel bad for the kid, but if nothing else, he got his contract extension a week or two before the injury. So financially, he's okay, but I'm sure emotionally he's pretty down. And he had a good game yesterday, by the way, until he got hurt.
How about this stat? That's the first time he's ever been hurt. Going back to college, he's never missed time. He's been one of the most durable performers. He's really put together. He's a short guy, but he's well built, very strong. It just, he took a freak hit by the guy who got actually blocked into him. At first, I thought it was going to be a flag, and they threw the flag, but they picked it up because the guy did get blocked into him. He just hit that foot that had just planted on the ground, and his knee buckled.
Someone said there was new turf. You think that factored in at all? I don't, in this instance.
No, I don't think so. Just the angle of the hit.
Yeah, very unfortunate. All right, there's another play here where Anthony Miller looked like he caught a touchdown pass. It was overruled, and that was a good call because the ball definitely scraped the ground. I don't think there was any question on that one.
Yeah, but the court, I still think I disagree with that one, unless it totally came out of his hand. The ball can touch the ground as long as the ball doesn't move.
Right. I don't think there was conclusive evidence on that one.
Yeah, I think it was originally called a touchdown, right, and I think that one should have remained a touchdown because we saw the replay 10 times, right, while they were replaying it on TV. And I kept looking and looking and looking. I go, to me, that's a touchdown.
The most damning evidence was the fact that Miller didn't argue the call, so it's probably not a catch.
Okay, you guys are making me think because I thought for sure that they made the correct call in overturning it, but now you're making me think about this one. All right, again, Atlanta just could not do anything offensively. We're into the fourth quarter now. You can feel the momentum starting to change. Here comes Nick Foles back on the field, and whatever rust he might have had, I'm shaking my hands again. We should be doing this visual. It's like I'm hocus pocus or something. Anyway.
Halloween's in 3 weeks. 4 weeks.
Anyway, you can feel that Foles is starting to get his mojo back, and he throws the touchdown pass to Robinson, and I thought there was shitty tackling on Atlanta's part on that one.
Hell of a play on Robinson's part, though. The run after the catch, he's got to elude some defenders. Shows a little burst going down that left sideline. Great play.
Yeah, he was determined this time to get into the end zone and not have the ref somehow overturn it. So, to his credit, and you know what? I hate to say this, guys. You could feel like he was a little bit more confident with that quarterback number 9 instead of number 10 out there. Do you agree or disagree?
Totally
I agree. I told you what was going on last week behind the scenes about that. So I think we had
Actually, I don't think you did say it on the last podcast.
Yeah, well,
You wanna
okay,
say it
I said
now?
off the air.
Okay, you say it in pig Latin.
Anyway, all right.
12 kind of favored 9.
Okay.
Okay.
New math. New math. Well, it looked like listen, he became much more of a focal point, target, if you will, in NFL parlance, in that third and fourth quarter. There's no question about that. All right, the defense continues to step up at this point. It's 26-23. Again, you could just feel it. Atlanta, oh my God. Not only did Atlanta in back-to-back weeks in fourth quarters blew 36-point leads. They were up 20 points in the fourth quarter against Dallas, 16 against the Bears. It's inconceivable to blow back-to-back games leading by 36 total points in the fourth quarter and lose 2 games. But you saw it coming.
Now that it happened, and I tweeted this out yesterday too, Quinn and Adam Gase with the Jets could be history within the next 2 weeks.
Well, and here's the thing that I was
And
perplexed
national
about.
media has been saying about Adam Gase.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I mean,
They're saying if
it's
they
a
lose
miracle
Thursday
he's not.
night, they got a 10-day break after they play Thursday night, and Gase could be gone on Friday if they lose the game on Thursday.
But with the Falcons, they were helping the Bears with their clock management. They were throwing passes, and it was 4 minutes left, and they were just continually did something to stop the clock and for the Bears' favor.
Like I said earlier, they had one drive, 3 and out. 11 seconds came off the clock.
Okay, now you mentioned a couple of coaches. I'm throwing in Matt Patricia, even though he won yesterday on the last-second field goal.
That was a
reprieve by the governor at the last second. Okay, but the same thing happened in that Lions game.
Executioner's room.
The same thing happened in the Lions game, though, where stupid coaching on the other sidelines led to the Bears coming from behind in the fourth quarter. Same thing, right?
No question. I'll tell you, as long as we're talking coaches, and people are jumping on the bandwagon for Cliff Kingsbury, he couldn't win at Texas Tech with Pat Mahomes. As simple as that. He is not a good football coach. People think they're going to win the NFC West. No way. That team is a bad team. They got a good quarterback. They're a bad team.
Okay, 26-23. Now here come the Lions, and they do exactly what we just talked about. They have poor, and I mean underlined poor clock management. Excuse me, the Falcons. And Matt Ryan overthrows, and again, he's been beaten to crap in the second half. He overthrows terribly, and Tashawn Gibson, did I pronounce his name correctly, with a nice interception. And here we go now. The Bears have a chance to take the lead in this game. And so what happens? Foles throws an absolutely perfect pass to Anthony Miller. He threw it like about 2 yards ahead of him, and it came right into his hands. That was a perfect touchdown pass.
Yes, it was. But let's go back, and this is stuff that came out today. He audibled the call to line of scrimmage, and he literally told Miller where to run. He saw the blitz. And this is the difference between Foles. He has enough experience to know what's coming. He saw that there was going to be an inside blitz from one of the linebackers. He ended up getting hit from that right when he threw the ball, but he saw it coming. He audibilized the play, told Miller where to go. He even told him exactly where to go. Go to the L. And that's where he threw the ball. Touchdown, end of game.
It was a perfect pass. And Anthony Miller, even though there's been some criticism over the first couple of games, and he did not catch that touchdown pass that scraped the ground, whatever, I thought he played a pretty good game yesterday.
Yeah, the receiving group as a whole, I thought played a really good game.
There was also one play, it was going all the way back to the first quarter, and I like this play where Miller comes in motion, and it's a quick snap to him, really quick handoff. I like that play.
Yep. I like that play. And Greg, correct me if I'm wrong. When Miller came out of Memphis, weren't there questions about his hands? Not that they were terrible, but that, there weren't always 100% there for every.
I personally didn't think that.
Okay.
He had an ankle injury that, forced him not to be able to run at the combine. He ran still with a hurt ankle. He still ran a 4.46 actually, it wasn't at the Memphis Pro Day. It was after that. Mm-hmm. So some teams could get a time on him. But, he was their go-to guy. The biggest problem with him was that his route tree was like 3 routes. Okay, so now he had to learn an NFL route tree coming in, and that's not the easiest thing to do. We talked about it in an earlier podcast. You're not always playing full speed when you're not totally sure exactly what you got to do, and you got to be able to read coverages and adjust on the move at full speed.
And he freelances a lot. That was part of what Mike Furry was upset with him about that. Sometimes, he's running that route as prescribed by the playbook, but then he would adjust it to get open and not realizing you can't do that because it screws up the entire play for everybody else.
You're going into somebody else's territory, so to speak.
Right.
And it's going to throw off the quarterback's throw.
Exactly.
All right, so the Bears come from behind. They win the game yesterday, 30-26. Taking a look at some of the numbers post-game, Allen Robinson, 10 receptions, 123 yards, and the 1 touchdown. He thought he had 2, but only 1. Jimmy Graham had 6 receptions, 60 yards, and a couple of touchdown passes. The difference between the two quarterbacks, believe it or not very much. Overall, Trubisky was 13 of 21, 128 yards. He did have the interception and 1 touchdown. A QB rating of 94.9. It's like an FM station. Nick Foles, 16 of 29, 188 yards and less time on the field. 3 touchdown passes, 1 interception, a QB rating just a little bit more, ever so slightly, than Trubisky at 95.2. But let's face it, guys, you saw the difference in 2 quarterbacks yesterday.
That's 29 passes in a quarter and a half.
Well, they had to. They were coming from behind.
Right. They're coming from behind, but he still had command, and I think it really changed what the Bears could do because Matt Nagy knew he could open up the offense a little bit more. Even though Foles doesn't get the reps during the week as the number 2 quarterback, this isn't his first year in this offense. He played this offense as a rookie at Philadelphia. Then Andy Reid leaves and Foles is playing for Chip Kelly in Philadelphia. But he ends up in Kansas City working for Andy Reid again and for Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy was a quarterback coach at that point. Then he goes to Philadelphia, comes in as a relief pitcher, playing in the exact same offense, wins the Super Bowl MVP, and now he's coming here. He knows and understands the offense, and he can do a lot more with that offense than Mitch can do.
All right, Greg, you're absolutely teeing it up in the fairway for me because you just spoke about Nick Foles.
Cheating.
Well, that's okay. I don't keep score, so it's okay to tee it up in the fairway. Doesn't make a difference.
I don't tee it up in the tee box. I hit it up.
Actually, you know what? Neither do I a lot of times. I just throw the ball on the ground, and I usually take my 3 or 5 wood, and I just hit off the ground.
I hit a 3 wood. I haven't used a driver in, 15 years.
Well, I haven't hit one good in about 20 years, but whatever. Anyway, let's hear from Nick Foles. He said, and just what you were talking about, Greg, he said, doing what he did yesterday, nothing new for him.
I think just from experience playing this game, obviously, practice throughout the week, you don't get reps, so you're constantly getting mental reps and being prepared and running the scout team, just trying to play ball. And it really came down to, we were down by a little bit, and our defense did a great job of holding them. And just going out there playing ball, trusting guys, watching the defense, watching the secondary, getting us to good plays if we need be, and executing. The way I approach the game is one play at a time, so it's not easy coming in cold like that, but if you can approach it with the mindset, hey, just one play at a time, you can't get all the points back in one throw, that helps a lot.
And Greg, I don't know how many times you've said it, to me personally and on these podcasts, but this is what Nick Foles has always done. He's better coming in relief, if you will, and that's exactly what he did yesterday.
He is great coming off the bench as a relief pitcher and then taking over. He's done it multiple times during his career and had success doing it. When he starts off the season, he struggles, but then let's back up a little bit more and say where he's had success too is in this particular offense. And numerous occasions in this particular offense. So I think it bodes well for the Bears for the rest of the season. I think now you're going to see a little bit different offense going forward through the rest of the week. And actually, it's going to make it a little bit harder for Indy to prepare for the Bears because it opens up the playbook that they haven't been able to do. And now you're going to see Nagy do a lot more with Foles at quarterback than he was able to do with Mitch.
One of the interesting things, Greg, I'd love to get your point of view on this, is that Montgomery has been averaging over 5 yards a carry out of with the quarterback under center, the traditional handoff under center. Now, Foles primarily is a shotgun quarterback. Do you think
90% of his snaps for his whole career?
So look at that. Are they going to make a change and go away from being under center?
They may. Now, part of it, Montgomery's average per carry took a hit yesterday. Again, something I tweeted out, what the Falcons were doing, because they know the Bears want to rely on the run, where they were calling a lot of run blitzes. Okay, and there were guys coming in unblocked and making plays. He got hit a couple times in the backfield right after the handoff. It was really an excellent call by the Falcons defensive coordinator to make those stops. But now, with the offense will change. I think the run's still going to be a big part of the offense. Whether he's going to be playing under center more, that remains to be seen. But the plus of that is the Colts got to be thinking the same thing. What are they going to prepare for? Is Nick Foles going to be under center, or is he going to be in shotgun? I would think they're going to say, okay, just the stat I just threw out, 90% of the plays he's had as a pro quarterback have been from the shotgun. So they're going to prepare for that. But it's going to be really the play calling that they're going to be unprepared for, because I think the playbook's going to open up a lot more. Matt Nagy's going to be able to do exactly what he wants to do offensively, because he has that confidence in Nick Foles that he didn't have in Mitch. He had to scale things back for Mitch.
And I think that was one of the things behind the change, is Matt Nagy saying, I'm a really, really good offensive coach. I'm an offensive genius. And the only thing that's stopping the world from
is
seeing...
a shitty quarterback.
No, I don't want to bury Mitch. Okay? And I got to tell you, he didn't have to get out in front of the media yesterday, and he did it. He took the bullets, and that says a lot about him.
And it's funny that you say that, because we're going to hear from him in just a second. But yesterday proved that Ryan Pace is either smart or not smart. Smart that he went after obviously Nick Foles, because this is the perfect situation, and he looks really smart. But the fans are never going to let up on this one. He drafted Trubisky number 2 overall. He moved up. And, it just hasn't worked out overall like he hoped, obviously, meaning Ryan Pace. Anyway, you're absolutely right, Greg. To his credit, not only did he get in front of the microphone to talk to the media yesterday on the Zoom calls, he was first up yesterday, if I recall correctly, as well. So he wanted to, he wanted to do the right thing, which is exactly what he did, and talk to the media, and he took the high road after the game.
I just accepted the news. I had Nick's back, like he's had mine, and the situation sucked, but it was just the flow of the game, how it was happening. Coach made a decision that he felt was best for the team, and I'm really happy for this team. I mean, they battled back, and it was awesome to get a W, but it sucks to get news like that, but that's just how it goes. I just got to control what I can control.
And it's real possible that he could be back, at some point, because Nick Foles, unfortunately, has had a history of injuries in his NFL career. So, you got to stay ready. That's just the name of the game. Always be ready, even if you're in a reserve role.
Right. The onus now is going to go on the offensive line, because Nick Foles, while he can extend plays, he's not the athlete Mitch Trubisky is. He's not going to make the plays with his feet that Mitch can do. So now the onus is on the line. They have to do a good job protecting him.
All right, 2 more sound bites. Let's hear from today now. Today is Monday. And listen, I had somebody, more than one somebody, who sent me either a message on Facebook or Twitter. Who do I think is going to be the starting quarterback, in the game against Indianapolis? And I said, is that a serious question? I mean, come on. Are you serious? You really think that they're, going to go back to Trubisky? No, they're not. And here's Matt Nagy with the official announcement of Nick Foles being his starting quarterback going forward.
We got together last night as coaches, and we talked about some stuff about where we were. We got up this morning and went through the tape, and at the end of it, we decided that we're going to start Nick Foles as a starter against Indianapolis. So both quarterbacks are aware of that. I know it's, for us, it's never easy. When you go into these type of situations, I want to credit both of those guys in yesterday's situation for being really supportive of each other this whole time. Even as hard as that was for Mitch to be told that he's Nick's going to go in and play. Mitch was, to his credit, was just an awesome supporter of Nick the rest of that game, and he flat out told Nick, I'm going to have your back just like you've had mine from the start. I think that speaks to who he is as well with him speaking to all you guys after the game, which he doesn't have to do, and he did it. And I think that speaks volumes to Mitch and who he is as a person. So, we're still going to support each other as we move forward here. We have a healthy quarterback room, and we're just looking forward to prepping here against the Colts.
All right, let's make something really clear here. He mentioned that Nick Foles will be his quarterback in the game against Indianapolis. It's not just Indianapolis.
No, I think he said another soundbite that I heard, and going forward.
Okay, all right. I'm glad he did another soundbite, because this is his quarterback going forward. It's going to take a monumental, 6-interception game, or certainly an injury, for there to be yet another quarterback change. And this is just the way it's going to be going forward. Like I said, Nick Foles, unfortunately, has had a series of injuries during his NFL career, so I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere down the road that maybe they're, go back to Trubisky only because of injury. But short of that, I just don't see that happening.
I agree with you. And I tweeted that out right after the game, too. I said, that we won't see Mitch play again unless there's an injury to Foles during the season.
All right, Greg. Now, you said that you would comment on this. I also tweeted out when they made the quarterback change yesterday, and initially Foles, had a couple of rusty passes, and it wasn't just for that reason. I said, what's the quarterback class coming out of college going to be like, next season, or next draft, I should say? Because to me, what it really meant, what happened yesterday was, and Ryan Pace has said that he's going to draft a quarterback every year, which he's lied about, but I think he's going to have to draft a quarterback next year. I mean, because Nick Foles is not here for the long run. He's just not. He's a little long in the tooth. Mitch Trubisky, I think, unfortunately, is not going to be the Bears franchise quarterback. So I think they're already going to have to start looking for a young quarterback. A lot can happen between now and April of next year, but I think the Bears are going to have to start looking for a new young quarterback going forward. What do you think, and what kind of class is there?
Well, I don't totally agree with you, and here's why. First, we've only played 3 games. There's 13 games left in this season. Let's see what Foles does the rest of the season.
But I'm going off his track record.
I know, but we still got to, we got to do it in the here and now, and the here and now is there's 13 games left. Let's see what he does. He's only 31 years old. In quarterback years, he's young. You can easily play to your 35, 36 in this league, and a lot of guys are playing even a lot longer than that. So what's Aaron Rodgers right now, 35 or 36, and he's still playing real good football. Phillip Rivers for the Colts is 37 or 38. He's playing good football. Roethlisberger's the same age as Rivers. They were in the same draft class. So I think while I agree that the Bears will draft a quarterback sometime in the draft, I think it's way too early to say they're going to use a first-round pick on a quarterback next year. Okay.
I didn't say that. I just said the quarterback class in general.
I understand. But that's the point I wanted to make. Yeah. Will they take one in the? First of all, who's going to be in the class? We don't know who's going to be in the class, because most cases it's underclassmen. And then this year, given what college football is, the Pac-10 isn't going to play until November. The Big Ten doesn't start playing until October 24th. Everybody else is playing a little bit of a scaled-back season. The MAC and the Mountain West, they just decided to come back over the weekend, so they don't start play till November. Who knows who the hell's going to be in the quarterback class next year? And once we figure out that, then, and also injuries, contract situation. Now, here's the good news. And it wouldn't shock me now, and I'm going a little bit off topic here, that a Robinson deal gets done now sooner rather than later. And I'll tell you, I think in the back of the Bears' mind, they had to prepare. Mitch was coming out of contract. And they had to prepare. If he plays good, he has to get paid, because he would have been a free agent next year.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Foles is under contract for 3 more years. So now, and at actually a relatively bargain price. So now that that's taken care of, your cap situation with the quarterback isn't as in flux as it was 24 to 48 hours ago. And you can make that move with Allen Robinson and not have to worry about the cap repercussions for next year.
Well, I think the handwriting was on the wall when the Bears didn't pick up the option on the fifth year of Trubisky's contract. Is that how it went?
Yeah, but they didn't do that with Kyle Fuller either, and it was the same group. And then they ended up paying, they put the transition tag on him, and they had to match the deal that Green Bay did. So if he played good, they were going to have to pay him. They weren't going to let him walk out the door. So
but in this instance, I don't think history is going to repeat like it did with Fuller. As far as that goes,
now it's a foregone conclusion. He's gone.
Yep.
He's a free agent, and he's going to be signing with somebody else next year.
Now, there is a report from Adam Schefter that Nick Foles, because he restructured the deal with the Bears, that he has the ability to void the deal after either of the first 2 years, depending on his performance. So we don't know what that is, but my guess is that if he has an outstanding season and takes this team to the playoffs and takes this team, deep into the playoffs, that he's going to say, okay, I'm going to void the thing because I'm a hot commodity now. Other teams are going to want to talk to me. I might find some idiots like the Jaguars to pay me big time bucks. So that, to me, tells me
Jaguars already paid him once.
That's right. They might do it again. But that, to me, tells me that I side with David. This team has to invest high. First round, second round on a quarterback. They need to develop a young quarterback. That's the way you win in this league. You don't pick up these stray quarterbacks who, journeyman quarterbacks, and you try to win. You have to build a team with a quarterback.
Understand what you're saying, but I'm still going to say I'm going to assume he's going to play well. And he's a guy that's played his best in this system. Now, I'm also going to say you don't always have to take a quarterback in the first round. As many quarterbacks as you've hit with in the first round are misses in the first round. Point of contention, Mr. Trubisky. Right. Okay. Now, where'd Dak Prescott go? Round 4. Where'd Minshew go? Later than that. Okay. Where'd Tom Brady go? 6th round. There's quarterbacks all over the league. The quarterback in Denver, he got hurt and didn't play last week. He went in the 2nd round. Mm-hmm. So, you don't have to invest a first-round pick. You invest in a first-round pick, the writing's already on the wall for Nick Foles next year. You're the bridge guy now.
Maybe.
Not maybe. That's the way it is. That's politics of the National Football League.
And you know this better than anyone in North America, that the higher the draft pick, the more likelihood are that you're going to find a good player. So you can't.
Except if you move up to get the 2nd pick and it's Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah, you can't say.
Mahomes was the 3rd quarterback taken in that draft.
That's right. He should have been the first.
How about Josh Allen? Josh Allen went 17th
in the first round. And so that's what I'm saying.
And he was the 3rd or 4th quarterback taken in that draft.
My point is that the higher you draft, the more likelihood there is that you're going to hit on a starting player and a good starting player. You can't depend on the finding a starter in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. That stuff happens once in a great while.
It's good scouting.
I would agree with Aldo that the percentages are higher. That the higher the quarterback is drafted, the more success ratio there probably is in the NFL. Let's go around the league yesterday because, as always, every Sunday in the NFL is interesting, but yesterday certainly had its own set of highlights. We'll start with the game on Sunday night. Green Bay, listen, Aaron Rodgers. Boy, I think they did the best thing possible by drafting Jordan Love. They pissed him off because he's been outstanding so far. He had 3 more touchdown passes last night. The Packers, the only other 3-0 team in the Bears division, beats New Orleans 37-30. Any thoughts on that game, guys?
My biggest thought in that game is that New Orleans isn't what we thought they were.
No, they're not.
That's 2 weeks in a row they've lost games, and Drew Brees is starting to look like the 40-year-old quarterback that he is. Mm-hmm. And with Thomas out, that really hurts their offense big time. Mm-hmm. And it takes away what they're able to do on offense. And I just think that, if they don't turn it around quick, they're going to be an also-ran in that division.
I've been calling for the demise of the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers for years now. They only listened to me once, and every other time I've been wrong. So I'm not even going to comment on the Packers anymore, other than I hate them.
How about if they're both undefeated when they play? I don't know when they play in November or something, right?
I'll check.
I'll give you odds on that. Will not be the case. Okay,
on both teams.
Yeah. Well. Okay, that's right. All right, Tennessee, Minnesota. They're the antithesis of the undefeated Bears.
Another tweet yesterday. Who would have thought 3 games into the season the Bears would be 3-0 and Minnesota would be 0-3?
Long odds on that one, but Tennessee gets 6 field goals from Steven Gostkowski, 31-30 over Minnesota. The Vikings are off to an 0-3 start. And listen, there's a lot of coaches that are in trouble. I don't think Mike Zimmer is, though.
He just signed an extension.
So he's not in trouble.
Those guys aren't going anywhere.
Bears and Packers, by the way, have their first meeting after Thanksgiving on the 29th.
Oh, so there's no chance.
And where's
of that
the first one, here or in Green Bay?
In Green Bay.
Okay, so we play them late here. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, the weather stinks no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember going up to Green Bay for games up there in December.
I was going to say home field advantage. You know what? Home field advantage means shit this year.
Yeah.
Well, that is true.
Week 1, it was 6 or 7 road teams won, and I think it was 6 or 7 again yesterday.
By the way, going back to the Bears game with Atlanta, there were family and friends that were at the game. You saw them littered throughout the stadium yesterday, very few and far between, obviously. I wonder if they were booing. They should have been booing. Hey, my husband stinks.
He's not getting any tonight.
Yeah, he ain't getting nothing.
Hey, did you guys find the crowd noise that was pumped in and for television purposes? Did you find it particularly annoying yesterday? I mean, usually the noise in these dome stadiums doesn't bother me a lot. But in yesterday's broadcast, I found it really annoying. What'd you guys think?
I just find it annoying in general, okay. So I don't know if it was any more than...
I don't even think about it. I'm so wrapped up in the game that I don't even listen to it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm wondering what I'm going to be eating and drinking at halftime. All right, Detroit beats Arizona yesterday. Hey, Matt Patricia saved his job for a week at least. 26-23, they win on the road at Arizona. DeAndre Hopkins. We
already talked about that one.
Yeah, so. DeAndre Hopkins, though, 32 catches in 3 games. He's on pace for a lot of catches. Well, he already has a lot of catches.
And he's not playing for a new contract because he just signed a really nice one, an extension of his deal.
He's playing for a renegotiate already.
All right.
Didn't pay me enough.
This next game, Greg, I was thinking of you as I'm watching the Bears game. Buffalo jumps out to that big lead. Oh, we got it in the bag. And you said, I think you tweeted out yesterday, shades of the Dallas-Atlanta game, if I'm not mistaken.
I said you thought the Dallas comeback was good.
Right.
Take a look at this one. Yeah, no, but earlier I had tweeted out the Bills are for real, and that they're kicking ass and taking names. And they totally dominated the game. And then it was actually that play we talked about earlier where Josh Allen had made or thrown a completion to one of their tight ends. Ball got wrestled away. And on replay, they gave the ball to the Rams. And that was the turning point in the game for the Rams. The Rams offense caught fire. But Josh Allen came back in that last drive in the last 2 minutes of the game, took him the length of the field and got the touchdown.
But what's happened to the Bills' defense the last 2 weeks? They look putrid.
In fairness, they lost their 2 starting linebackers, didn't play a week ago. They played yesterday, but I don't think they were 100%. And one of the corners went down in that game yesterday too. So let's take it. The Rams are a good football team, okay, and it's the offense that's carrying the Bills. And right now, Josh Allen, he could be the MVP of the AFC.
Yeah.
He might lead the league in yardage. I haven't checked the thing, but he's thrown. Going into the season, he never threw for over 300 in games 1 and 3.
He's over 1,000 yards already.
He threw for 400 in game 2, over 300 in game 1 and game 3. If he's not first in the league in yardage, he's second.
Yeah, but this Bills defense, they've given up. I should say the Dolphins have scored 11 points, 28 points, and 13 points. The 28 was against Buffalo. That tells me that this Bills defense is really suffering.
All right, but now, in fairness, too, the Dolphins game against the Bills was in Miami. The Dolphins' other 2 games, I think, were on the road.
That's correct.
Buffalo wins the game, by the way, 35-32, so they are 3-0, and Josh Allen had 4 more touchdown passes. Indianapolis, the Bears' next opponent. God, how would you like to be a football fan in New York right now? Those two teams are 0-6, the Jets and the Giants. Yesterday, the two teams were outscored 72-9. 72-9. Oh, WFAN must be having a field day today.
I saw one tweet that said maybe the Jets and the Giants can share Lawrence. You know, the quarterback from Clemson. I thought that one was pretty funny. But how about, Bears fans get on Trubisky's case? How about the Jets quarterback? He went number 2 overall, too. Sam Darnold.
That's true.
I did not like Sam Darnold coming out. I thought he was actually the worst in that draft class of the top quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. One of our old guests moved the sticks, Daniel Jeremiah. He loved him, but, that was he's real tight with the agent, and so part of that he was pumping the player for the agent. But Sam Darnold sucks.
Well, they should have
Big time.
They should have drafted Sam Donaldson, the old news guy.
Is he still alive?
He is, but he doesn't look too
Barely.
good. Yeah. Anyway, Indianapolis, the Bears' next opponent, rushed for 234 yards on the ground. That sort of caught me off guard.
The best offensive line in football.
Okay, well, that'll be a point that we'll talk about on our next podcast, video on Thursday. All right, but the other team in New York, oh my God, San Francisco beats the Giants 36-9. So again, the two New York teams, I love this, are 0-6 so far. Some of the other games, Cleveland
the New Jersey teams, you mean?
Jersey, you're right. They are across the river or whatever the hell it is there, but they're
7 miles from Midtown Manhattan.
You are right.
I've done the drive 1,000 times.
7 miles takes
7
about
miles.
3 hours. But whatever. Cleveland
you just get on Route 3, go into the tunnel, and you're right there.
Cleveland beats Washington 34-20. Pretty nondescript game. Although the Browns are over 500 for the first time in, I don't know,
6 years or something like that.
Yeah, how about that? Let's see. New England. And this is what I like about, and I don't like Bill Belichick. I've said that numerous times. But I do like the fact that he's a really good coach, no question. And he tailors, his pattern of play over his, roster. And they rushed for 250 yards yesterday. The Patriots did. I don't know if you can remember the last time that might have happened.
First game.
They had 250 in the first game?
No, but they rushed for a shitload of yards in that first game.
The point that I'm trying to make is they have new personnel, and he's patterning his team after his personnel. Anyway, New England beats Vegas. That was an obvious one because we talked about what time was that game yesterday? It was noon. Vegas coming from the West Coast time.
And they played Monday night.
I mean, you talk about you want to go to the cashier's window. That's when you go to the cashier's window.
Right.
New England wins by 16. Pittsburgh, they're undefeated. Ben Roethlisberger also turning the clock back. 28-21 over Houston. Your buddy O'Brien down in Houston. I'm not saying he's really your buddy, but I know you get on his case.
0-3 Bill?
Yeah. 0-3 Bill. That's his new name.
Head coach trying to be Bill Belichick, and he can't do it.
Yeah.
Got rid of all his good players. That Bill O'Brien?
Yeah, he's 0-3. Carolina beats the LA Chargers 21-16. Tom Brady, 3 touchdown passes, and looking more like Tom Brady finally yesterday. 28-10 over Denver. How about Russell Wilson? If Josh Allen is the MVP in the AFC, I don't think any question Russell Wilson so far is the MVP in the NFC. 38-31, and I love when Dallas loses also. Seattle is undefeated, 38-31 over Dallas, and so far, Wilson, in 3 games, has got 14 touchdown passes.
How many does Josh Allen have?
I don't know. I don't think it's 14.
I think he's got 10.
Okay, so, they're the 2 odds-on favorites so far. Kudos to both of them. And then in the game that, why are there ties in the NFL? I don't understand. They should have a kickoff contest or something. But Cincinnati and Philadelphia,
a shootout like they do in hockey.
Anything. I mean, just get the 2 shitty kickers and have them. First one to kick a 60-yarder, the team wins. Anyway, Cincinnati and Philadelphia. No fans again in Philadelphia. You could still hear the boos within 10 miles of the stadium. 23-23.
I talked to Howie Roseman on Saturday morning, and I needed to ask him a question about one thing, so he called me back, and I said, Howie, how you doing? Not good. 0-2. Now it's 0-2-1.
I mean, there's usually like 1 tie a year in the NFL. I mean, that's probably an average. You don't rarely see more than that if you even see 1.
Actually,
should there be ties in the NFL? Should they break them somehow?
When they changed the overtime rule from 15 minutes to 10 minutes, You're going to see, I think we had 2 or 3 last year. That changes the whole strategy.
Why did they do that?
Because of the number of plays and getting guys. It was the injury thing.
5 extra minutes is going to make that much of a difference?
Well, it's a couple possessions.
Okay.
Players get tired, that kind of thing.
But still, you might only get the ball one time in a 10-minute, in that 10-minute quarter, and if you can run the clock, and granted, if you go down and score a touchdown, you win, but you hold the team that receives the kickoff, and then you get the ball. All you need is a field goal to win. But still, I think in 10 minutes, it just. Because of the strategy in that shorter overtime period, it just makes the likelihood of a tie a lot higher than it was before.
All right, 2 last things before we get out of here. And again, a reminder, we'll be back on Thursday with a video podcast as we preview the Bears' next game, which is coming up on Sunday against Indianapolis. But I just want to touch on college football real quickly. I'm not really surprised by this. Oklahoma and LSU, 2 top teams, who are supposedly going to vie for the national championship. LSU coming off the national championship, but with a lot of new personnel. And Oklahoma, which always seems to choke, at some juncture of the season, they both lost. Any thoughts there?
Doesn't surprise me on Oklahoma, except, Kansas State lost to Louisiana the week before, 2 weeks before, and just looked horrible. And they had guys out because of COVID, so they're playing with a shorthanded roster. Yet they go into Norman and they actually kick the shit out of Oklahoma. But in that league, there's no defense, and Kansas State played defense and was able to score on Oklahoma. The LSU game, LSU lost a ton of players who opted out. First, they had a lot of players get drafted, and then they had a bunch of other players who opted out. So that doesn't surprise me. And on top of that, that was the opening game in the SEC. They really didn't have a book on what Mississippi State was going to do because Leach comes in there with that new offense they had. So I don't know if they're fully prepared.
600 yards of offense,
Oh,
by the way.
I know. 600 yards of passing.
Yeah.
I think if that is the third game, it's a different story because you got some tape on what Mississippi State's going to do.
All right, the last thing for college football, Greg, and I know you'll have some thoughts on this one. They're all going to play now. I mean, they all follow the leader, okay? Right. So the Big Ten, and then the Pac, whatever they are, Pac 10, 12, 14, whatever they are, they decided to follow through, and now the MAC. But it's interesting because each conference has got a different amount of games. So I'm leading up to, should they all be eligible for the national championship? The Big Ten is going to play 8 games. I think the Pac 10.
They're only going to play 7, I think.
7, and the MAC is only going to play 6.
Well, yeah, but and the MAC.
There's lesser schools.
They're not going to get into the
no, I know.
situation.
I'm just saying
the Mountain West is going to also announced over the weekend. They're going to play, but with the Pac-10 and the Big Ten, I said it last week. I don't think they should, being that they're playing like 2 games less. And maybe 3 games, at least 2 games, and maybe 3 games less than the Southeast Conference, the Big 12, and the Atlantic Coast Conference. They shouldn't be in consideration for the national championship, but damn well they will be. They're going to cut them a pass because this is the year of COVID. And just from the standpoint of the beating that their bodies have taken, the Pac-12 and the Big 10 gives them actually a better opportunity to win once the playoffs start because they haven't played as many games.
Okay. The last thing I'm going to leave you with, and I know this is going to maybe raise your blood pressure just a few notches.
What, Jason Lockenford?
Yeah. God, I couldn't even get it out, and you were ready to go. Aldo's got the camera ready because he wants to put this on the website. I know that. Go ahead. Go after him.
The absolute worst insider,
Go
Mr.
for it.
Lazy, tweets out the Bears are going to be, they might be 3-0, but they're going to be 8-8. But in that part, you said they're going to be 8-8, so that's okay. It's the next part of his tweet, and it doesn't help that they're locked in draft choice purgatory. They are? No, they're not. They got out of purgatory with the last draft, the 2020 draft, when they had 2 second-round picks. Jason, get your act together, buddy.
Yeah, and for the record, I did say that the Bears would start 3-0, so I looked good today, and I ultimately said they would finish 8-8. And the only reason I even did that is because I looked game by game by game by game. Now, listen, I might have to, retract a little bit because the Bears will be the favorite on Sunday against Indianapolis.
Actually, the Colts are a 2.5-point bigs put out from Joe Fortenbaugh. I think Colts
Indianapolis is a favorite on Sunday?
I think I'd have to look.
Is that right?
Yeah, their pass defense is the best in the NFL. Now, they've played 3 terrible teams in terms of pass defense, but I think that's probably what Vegas is thinking.
All right, well, the Bears have played 3 terrible teams that are combined 1-8 so far.
The Colts lost in Jacksonville.
Okay. Anyway, then I was wrong about the Bears being a favorite on Sunday, but I did have the Bears finishing 8-8, and they're just about to enter the tough part of their schedule, which is the middle part of their schedule, and they're going to be facing some really good teams, and it's always seemingly injury related, sometimes, especially as the season goes on, who wins and who loses, but I hope I'm wrong, because so far, 3-0 looks pretty damn good.
And they, except for Tariq Cohen, and that's going to be a big loss.
That is going to be a big loss.
They've stayed healthy. They've stayed a lot healthier than most other teams.
Yeah, no question. So again, we're going to be back on Thursday. We will preview the upcoming game against Indianapolis. We'll look really pretty that day.
So I get to do this from home?
That's right.
You are. You will.
Okay.
Anyway, we'll talk to you.
Clean up the study.
We'll talk to you then, folks. Hey, take care.
We've got more Bears football coverage every day this week. Visit BearsBallroom.com and you'll have links to all of our fun stuff.